I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, could we have a roll call of the board, please?
Agostinelli is absent and excused. Robertson.
Here.
Yulee.
Here.
Racine.
Here.
Fudge.
Here.
And DeGood.
Here. All right, with that, we will move forward to our first opportunity for public comment. Please be aware that we have two public hearings on the agenda for tonight. One is for the dual road conditional rezoning request, and the other is for the zoning ordinance proposed amendment mixed-use neighborhood. If you'd like to speak to those when the Planning Commission will be discussing them, we encourage you to wait for that public hearing period. Otherwise, feel free to step up to the podium, state your name and address, and make your public comment heard.
Good evening. I'm Amy Hartzog. My address is 4921 Kodiak Drive, so just a neighbor of yours to the west in Long Lake Township. But I'm here as a trail planner for Tart Trails. Wanted to speak in support of the YMCA and their expansion project. As we discussed last month, it's definitely needed. It's a great resource for the community. We're grateful for the work that they do, the after-school opportunities, the childcare as well. It's all incredible, and as we advocated at that time, it was for a crosswalk. It feels like our voices were heard, and there's been some positive momentum I appreciate the findings of fact that the township's put together and that you're going to discuss this evening, but also with Trustee Agostinelli talking to the trustees about whether a speed study could be initiated, and so that is some positive momentum that hopefully we can continue with TCAPs and possibly a Safe Routes to School grant, and just put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So I appreciate the dialogue and the support and seeing the importance of biking and walking in Garfield Township. You're such a growing township. You've got a lot of space to grow, and I definitely, as I was driving over here, thinking about like, where do I spend my money? Garfield Township, that's where I do a lot of commerce, just in general. So thank you for the improvements that you're making to it, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to make public comment? All right, with that, we will close the public comment period, and we will move on to review and approval of the agenda and statements of any conflict of interest.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Support. All right, we have a motion by Robertson, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. The motion passes. And next on the agenda, item number 3, we have review and approval of the minutes from November 12th, 2025.
I'll move we approve the minutes.
Support.
Motion by Racine, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion passes. Let's move on now to item number 4 on our agenda, correspondence. And I think we have a few items on our desk.
Yes, there are 3 emails that we received regarding support for crosswalk at Wyatt and Silver Lake, and support for a speed study for Silver Lake Road as well. We also received a letter today from the Watershed Center regarding the Swan View special use permit application. And then there's an item, it's not correspondence, but just so you know, it's on your desk, is a staff item. There's a highlighted piece there regarding the High Tops recommended motion there. There's a amendment to condition number 5, and we'll deal with that under site plan review.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about the correspondence? All right, we will move on to reports. Anything, well, Molly is absent and excused. Steve, John, are you aware of anything relevant from the Township Board meeting?
Well, as just was mentioned about the speed study, there's the board approved a request to the road commission regarding speed studies on Silver Lake Road from Frankie to South Airport Road, and then another one on East Silver Lake Road, kind of south of Zimmerman. So those will go to the road commission and then will be forwarded on to the Michigan State Police to conduct those speed studies. One of the things that should be helpful, particularly in that stretch on Silver Lake between Frankie and South Airport, is the new criteria based on the state law that passed that can take into some local information and context and related to those speed studies, where historically it's just been the 85th percentile. It now can take in local criteria. So I think in that case, the township did make, as part of that request, to recognize some of the things such as schools and so forth that are in that area. So those I know at least were the 2 items at the board meeting yesterday.
Let's see, Parks and Recreation. We had a meeting last week on Monday. We're anticipating reviewing when stuff becomes available, the Planning Commission's future consideration of food trucks. That's something we're going to look at early next year. We established we took a look at our projects for next year and discussed those. But outside of that, I can't think of anything really relevant to the Planning Commission. Can you, Steve?
Yeah, I think everything else was parks related, specific to parks projects. The board would have adopted their budget yesterday, so I don't know the final version. I'm assuming it was heavily informed by the CIP, which of course went before the Planning Commission, and a big chunk of that was the parks project. So we'll have the finalized data for that, and I think just on a regular basis be tracking that. For parks, and actually for Planning Commission and the board as well, just kind of do regular CIP tracking.
Anything from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Bob?
We had no meeting.
Okay. And John, anything from the Joint Planning Committee for the comments?
We did have a special meeting last month, and it was focused on the area in the vicinity of the barns. The Rec Authority had asked about tweaking the building envelope slightly, and we agreed with that minor modification to more align with roads as opposed to just abstract lines that nobody could see on the ground. And we also, at the request of the folks that are using the community garden, they need more shed space, so we authorized some assistance there so they can have a little more shed space in the garden area. I think that's all we did, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep, those will go to public hearing scheduled for January, because these will be amendments to the development regulations, and then they'll go on to both the city commission and township board for consideration to amend the development regulations for those improvements or changes.
Very good. I guess we'll move on to our next item, staff report.
Yeah, you have our December 2025 monthly report in your packets. I did want to give you an update on the Macy's sign application. So I had been in conversation with the owner of the former Macy's store there, and basically alerted them to their application, since it hasn't been active since they initially made application back in September, that there's a time limit on these applications. And so if they didn't get anything to this meeting today on December 10th, that application would expire. And they were okay with that. They are, one of the things that they're trying to work with is the new mall owner, Namdar. So they actually have a meeting this week with Namdar in New York. And so they'll be talking about those issues, not just shared signage and so forth, but also other things that they are part of this reciprocal easement agreement for the Grand Traverse Mall. So some of those things really needed to be addressed before they could do any of these other changes anyways. So just want to kind of give you an update on that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, we will move on to our unfinished business, starting with item A, PD 2025-140, 931 Dual Road Conditional Rezoning Request, Public Hearing. You want to start us off?
Yeah, so this is a request for parcel 931 Dual Road, which is just east off of Garfield Road, south of South Airport Road. And this is to a conditional rezoning request to rezone it from industrial to general commercial with the restriction that only commercial district housing development would be permitted at this location. So this is the public hearing. Should this go forward, then as part of the process, it goes to the township board ultimately for consideration. But there is a offer of conditions that's been presented by the applicant to restrict it, to basically allow for a duplex to be used in the existing building. So there's no plans for new construction. It's just utilizing that existing building for 2 new apartments.
All right, well, with that, shall we open it for the public hearing? All right, anybody who would like to make any public comment regarding the 931 Dual Road Conditional Rezoning Request, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and make your public comment. Sometimes I feel like we should give it 5 or 10 minutes to see if anybody changes their mind. All right, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll bring it back to the commission.
I just wanted to add, there was a gentleman that called back at the end of November, Mr. Corson, who has Jade Tool, which is a couple doors down to the east of this property, and he's okay with the proposed use, but his concern is the traffic on Garfield and accessing, getting in and out of Dual Road. And I don't know if there's anything that can be resolved as part of this process, but I would say this type of use as a residential use is going to be a lower generator of traffic. It is a challenge because of that is a sizable intersection. Some of the backup that happens there, and do realizing getting in and out of there can be a challenge. So, but I know that was kind of some of the similar comments that were made regarding the 3066 commercial district housing development, which is approved for the property just to the west of this one. But typically residential is a lot less than, whether it would be general commercial or even light industrial uses.
Thank you, John. Well, any discussion the commission would like to have, or is someone ready to make the motion?
I'd be happy to make the motion. It seemed like it was sort of a no-brainer, no opposition, and it seems to make sense and it's consistent. So with that, I'd make the motion to direct staff to prepare findings of fact for review at our January 14th, 2026 regular meeting for application Z-2025-03 submitted by Melissa Riggs Howard and James Howard to rezone parcel 05-013-030-00 located at 931 Dual Road from its current zoning of IG General Industrial to CG General Commercial with conditions.
Support.
All right, we have a motion from Racine with a support by Robinson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And we will move on now to item B, PD 2025-141. Zoning ordinance proposed amendment, mixed-use neighborhood. And again, this is a public hearing.
Yeah, so this is creating a new district, the mixed-use neighborhood district. This would allow some of the implementation of the master plan, which identifies certain areas within the township that are kind of a lower density development that where you would typically have a mix of maybe some light commercial, office, some multifamily, single family, to have it mixed in. And this would apply particularly in those corridors that make sense. Like, for instance, we're looking at the corridor right outside the building here, Veterans Drive. I did want to note, when we were reviewing this, there was one requirement. Part of this district, as it was developed, was based on the CL, local commercial, and the office commercial district, with the infusion of more residential uses. There was a standard that is in the CL and the CO that we thought would possibly be appropriate for this as well, and that's related to parking in the front yards. So currently, how that standard says is that front yards shall be appropriately landscaped and maintained, and except for necessary drives and walks shall remain clear and not be used for storage, parking, loading, or accessory structures. So we thought that would be appropriate to at least consider by the Planning Commission for replacing the one line in the parking and driveway standards, which is part of the site development requirements under Part E of that section. So just something to consider.
I'm curious, with that regard, are there front yard parking in existing developments along the corridor?
There are some, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the intent would be that somebody redeveloped as commercial with a new site plan would provide for a building closer to the road and parking behind.
Yeah. Or behind or to the side.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns, or should we open it up for public comment? All right, well, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to make a public comment regarding the zoning ordinance proposed amendment mixed-use neighborhood, please step up to the podium, state your name, address, and make your public comment heard.
Nels Bellicat, 3479 Veterans Drive, right out here. Brought my prop for the rezoning exhibit. We have the residential house that sits in the commercial office zone, never used for a commercial activity. We want to expand the house, move the driveway to side load the garage, and we don't conform as a residential. So this would be perfect for what we need to do at the house, which is ask for a zoning, a rezoning of the property in some way. We live here, we walk here, we drive here. Also, wanting to side load the garage, that's a perfect example right there in the dimensional standards. You know, I could go on and on about sidewalks and everything else. Spent a lot of time out here, and I think this is the right type of change for especially this neighborhood, one where we want to connect more people. We have a bus stop. My son uses the bus, gets off at the Albany stop behind the fire station, needs to cross the road, get from one place to the other very safely. And, you know, it's difficult sometimes along that stretch, but I think this is exactly what this neighborhood needs. And we will be the first ones to apply for that zoning if it were implemented. Thank you again. I feel like you're moving through this with great effect, and you're being thoughtful about it, and you're following the master plan, which is another reason why I think this is perfect for this neighborhood. There were a lot of things about the office designation that we liked in terms of the placemaking that we wanted to see done, and this really helps support that. So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Nels. Anyone else like to make a comment? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion. So then, with the addition of the proposed replace section, we're basically recommending adoption of the ordinance as we've previously reviewed and discussed.
Yeah, it'll go to the to the township board. There would have to be another public hearing scheduled before they can take action on it.
So the front yard can only be landscaped and maintained? No walks, storage, parking, all that stuff?
You can have walks, driveways, circulation type of stuff, but it can't have storage or
Okay.
parking. And like I said, this is currently how some of the properties, like the commercial office and the local commercial, already exist on the corridor, have that restriction already in place.
Would that represent, or create a problem if it was a smaller lot in, like a neighbor, or a party store, for instance? And then, or something like that, where you couldn't have any parking in the front, like Francisco's up there, that's kind of the district we're dealing with, is, something like that. And is that gonna create a problem by adding this new, notes to the dimension standard?
So if they did, and that was, the way we had it originally worded was to accommodate that, so it wouldn't be kind of a non-conforming type of situation. But yeah, this would not provide for that. It wouldn't permit that. So it would have to be, and it's not to say they can't exist there and operate it, be for like new development, would want to go into this, would adhere to this. So, because I think, actually, right now, they are local commercial, which is where this requirement already is in that, is that
Right,
provision's
but-
already there.
yeah.
But this is we are gonna create, or we're gonna use this mixed-use neighborhood, we're gonna implement in areas like that. in the
Right.
So if somebody was wanting to build that store over again, how would, in that small lot, you would just, they would have to build the store closer to the road, and then they would feed it from the back? And have the parking lot in the back, is that what?
Yeah, I mean, in that particular case, it would, yeah, you wouldn't have necessarily the parking lot up front. It would be either to the side or to the rear or both. And that site right now has restricted access from Silver Lake Road, and then East Silver Lake Road is really its main entrance off to the side already. But yeah, that does impact design and layout of buildings, does kind of inch them closer to the roadway and puts that parking either on the side or the rear.
Kind of trying to figure that, if that'd be a problem in any smaller areas, or, but anyway, I guess, you guys looked it over and everybody feels this is gonna be okay.
Well, you know, like I said, it's already there right now on that property and the property across the street. So it's hard to say how this will go through, but we kind of thought that carrying it forward, and because it's already in our low-density commercial districts as it is. And so we'll see how it goes forward in terms of site design and so forth.
So you're saying this edit basically maintains consistency with the low-density commercial? It's not really a change so much as something that just got overlooked in the original drafting of the revised ordinance?
Correct.
Right. I think when we were looking at devising this language here, we were really kind of focused on that location where like Francisco's at as kind of a model, but then whereas we're reevaluating it and going through those, the CL district and the CO district, we're realizing that this is a provision that's already there. And I think it's our thought is it's a valid design element. We have it in some of our other districts, like our light industrial districts has the same type of provision. So it does kind of change the aesthetic a little bit, but we think through good site design, it should work.
Okay.
Because there are other sites as well where there's parking in the front. It happens to be a small yard. There's not a lot of room for maneuvering. It can back up or potentially cause conflicts with maneuvering in the right of way. And you see that on some of those smaller sites. And they can kind of continue to exist, but it's more as you get new development to keep those in mind. So.
Just wanted to ask for clarification. So replacing the older language with the newer language is preferred because number one, what you just said about backups and maneuverability, and number two, the aesthetics. Those are the two main reasons for making the modification? Okay. That makes sense.
Any other questions or thoughts? John?
Just a question for staff. As I was reading the draft of the new proposed language, the very last sentence in section 630F about signs says wall signs shall be located on a primary building wall and are not permitted on secondary building walls. Are those terms of art defined someplace in the ordinance, primary building wall versus secondary? I didn't see it, any definition. I didn't see these in the definition section of the ordinance, but maybe they're defined somewhere else.
That's a good question.
I'm pretty sure they're not defined.
I get the intent, I think, but there probably ought to be no chance that somebody doesn't know what we're talking about there.
Because I know there's some limitations in our 630, which is our sign. I think there needs, we talked about redoing that one, and it does need a host of definitions, because there's quite a few gaps there in some of the terminology, just in that one section alone. Just want to see what that's.
If it's not in the definitions, maybe we can put that on our to-do list early next year to add a couple definitions.
Yeah, I think that might coincide with the kind of looking over that entire section is, yeah, add that definitions of terms, and that's one to specifically call out. Right now, I think the only proposed change in any of these other sections was just to add mixed-use neighborhood to any other sections that call out things by district, signs, or some of the supplemental standards, anywhere else where you've got the list of districts, just account for it.
So are you okay, John, if we provide a definition early next year?
I'm fine with it. I just was thinking it makes
Yeah.
sense what it says in this draft ordinance, but I'm not sure we've got a definition that explains to everybody. It sort of takes us back to the substantial completion issue that was dealt with in the last year or two, and
Yep.
let's just soon nip those potential areas of confusion in the bud. But
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's in there right now. So this is to address multi-tenant buildings. So something like a Francisco's, where maybe you have a couple of different storefronts there. And that's what it is right now, is signs in the CL, CG, and the CH districts. But yeah, like I said, I think there almost needs a set of detailed definitions strictly for signs, just because it does, there's a lot of nuances to that particular section that really need to be clarified.
Anybody want to make a motion? Unfortunately, the bench is kind of light tonight, so there's fewer of us that can make the
I'll make a
motion.
motion if you want.
Thank you, John.
I'll make the motion that that the proposed amendment to the Garfield Township zoning ordinance as attached to Planning Department Report 2025-141 be recommended for adoption by the Township Board with the following amendment, and that's item number 1 in our report. Do we need to read that, or can we just make reference to it?
I think you make reference.
Okay.
Yep.
Support.
We have a motion by Racine, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. The motion passes. All right, with that, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is PD 2025-142, GT Bay YMCA Phase 2 SUP Major Amendment, and this is to review the findings of fact for that project.
So you have the findings of fact that were drafted for the special use permit application to do an expansion at the Grand Traverse Bay YMCA. This is where they're adding on roughly about a 20,000 square foot addition, and then also adding in additional parking areas to support that expansion. So the findings of fact have been drafted for your consideration, as well as a motion for action on the special use permit application. I know there's been a lot of communication, discussion regarding the idea of a crosswalk there at Wyatt Road and Silver Lake Road. We are making a recommendation, at least in that regard, that the YMCA be supportive of that project, short of any financial contributions at this time. We think that there's, certainly the opportunity for the Y to help in maybe providing area or space, so easement, land, et cetera, if should there be one sited in that general vicinity that's on the Y property, so just getting their cooperation. It's an area, I think there has to be a few more steps to occur before that crosswalk be considered. One of the things that we just mentioned was the speed study for Silver Lake between Frankie and South Airport, since the speed currently is posted as 55. So in conversations with the road commission, I think it would be quite the challenge to cite something under those conditions right now. But should that speed study come back with a lowering of it to, let's say, 45 miles an hour, that does kind of open up some greater options. Also, in conversation with TCAPS and looking at safe routes to school, we actually did receive an email this afternoon from Ginger Smith at TCAPS and some of their audits and data analysis looking at crosswalks in that particular area. They were mainly focused on a crosswalk there on Frankie Road across from the new Montessori school. But actually, when they looked at the data, there was strong support for a potential crossing at Wyatt Road in Silver Lake. So there could be an opportunity to pursue safe routes to school, resources to fund some type of a crosswalk. I know from the township standpoint that we've been interested in having a connection between West Middle School and West High School, connecting Wyatt and Westchester, as well as working with developments like Meadow Valley and having those connections. There's also a potential opportunity to maybe reach out to the Grand Traverse Band and their development on Herkner Road to have maybe a spur off into that direction. But I think our feeling on the bottom line is that this is really a larger community project, and it really kind of maybe needs to look a little bit broader in terms of, we still think it's an important project for having that crosswalk, but it really probably needs to be a bigger discussion in terms of getting different parties and stakeholders involved and looking at the different resources to make sure this happens at some point in the future. But I think there's some of those steps, like I mentioned, the speed study happening first. Other than that, on our findings, we felt that the special use permit as presented met the conditions of the zoning ordinance, and so we presented those for your consideration.
Any thoughts or questions from the planning commission? Kara?
So for standard 10 on page 5, I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around whether that standard is met. If we currently believe two things: one, that the pedestrian crossing situation is unsafe in its current condition, and two, that this SUP amendment is going to increase not only vehicular but pedestrian traffic, should we not seek the solution prior to moving forward? And I don't want to delay this project by any means, but we're hearing quite a bit from the community. Unfortunately, it's not a great time of year for me to go out and get eyes on the ground and see what the real situation is with snow on the ground, but I suspect that, enough people have come forward with these concerns that it is real. And I think, too, about were this a different partner, having some kind of SUP amendment that was going to generate increased traffic, if we would have the same approach. So I'm just trying to reconcile standard 10 pedestrian crosswalks kind of speaks to it, but kind of not, because it's really focused more on the internal site plan. But we do take these considerations when it is vehicular, and we should do the same for non-motorized. We have in our master plan lots of stuff about how we accommodate and plan for safe non-motorized transportation, and so I'm just a little concerned. I'm curious where other commissioners are too.
John?
I don't disagree with that, Cara. I sort of share the same concern, but I guess on balance, I'm prepared to go forward, I think, with the project in the optimistic view that the parties that be between the road commission, the schools, the Y, they'll figure out a way to get a crosswalk there as soon as the various hoops have been passed through. But there are a lot of hoops, and it's going to take time. And I think it would be a shame to stall the Y project for a year or two before a crosswalk gets put in. It may be something that technically we could insist on, but I guess I'd be prepared to not do that at this point.
Yep, and I fully understand that the township board was supportive of the resolution for the speed studies, and that that's a necessary precursor to being able to do any kind of crosswalk there. So I certainly understand that there's hoops that have to be jumped through that are totally out of the Y's control.
Joe, any thoughts?
No, I agree that we should probably keep the Y moving forward. Hopefully that crosswalk will get put in there, so.
You
Bob?
definitely need the crosswalk, but when you've got two of them in different locations, it creates conflict. And obviously, they're not in agreement.
John, is there any mechanism to have the, Kara brings up a significant issue in terms of if this was a commercial development, I'd like to think, we'd have to consider that development, but I'd like to think that we would look to that commercial development to be invested in more than just providing an easement and support, but perhaps having some financial stake in the cost of the improvements, particularly when we do have a pedestrian amenity that dead ends kitty corner or across an intersection to this revised SUP. We probably would put a commercial development more on the hook to maybe not pay for it all, but have some sort of financial investment in it. But I'm going to condition that question and statement by saying that I realize that if it's going to take more than the duration of the Y's construction period for the crosswalk issue to be resolved, we can't put them on the hook to, resolve it, fund it before they open their doors. Is there any way we can ask the Y to be more invested in this?
Well, I think they are. I think they recognize certainly going through this process does, in the, feedback that we've got from the community certainly brings it to attention. I feel there's certainly a party to it, but I just knowing, seeing where the location's at, knowing that there's the Safe Routes to School facility that's right across the street, it's like they're one part of it and one part of the solution, but I feel like there really does need to be those other parties to be at the table in working towards that. And I think, if anything, after your planning commission meeting that you had back in November, we did have a follow-up staff meeting. We met with TCAPS and TART and the road commission, and I think there's some momentum going forward with this that I believe can essentially kind of run parallel, allow the Y to continue and go through its process. They've been working very hard on this to make this happen, and I think it's certainly a real benefit to the community to have them doing what they're doing. And I think this is, if anything, is really got others engaged and moving forward. And like I said, I think that crosswalk can be almost kind of like a parallel project to what they're doing. And then that way it doesn't necessarily hinder them in terms of going forward with their improvements that they're going to make.
Is the Y taking the lead or not?
At this point, they're not necessarily the lead. I would say it's a collaborative effort. You know, I think TCAPS, I do have to appreciate their involvement in this, that they've really, they feel really engaged, and certainly the, you know, TART and the township at the table, you know, the road commission has been very accessible as well.
Well, any other thoughts? Are we all understanding the 6 conditions that are included in the recommended action? Any questions with regard to those? If there are none, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that the findings of fact for application SUP 2006-02-D as presented in Planning Department Report 2025-142 and being made part of this motion be adopted.
Support.
All right, and we have a motion from Robertson, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion?
I will vote against this because I don't feel solidly that Standard 10 has met, but I am fully in support of the project in general.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same?
Nay? I don't know what the,
Aye.
aye? Feels
All right.
wrong.
We have a motion 4-1. The motion passes. And just for clarification, as we're missing 2 board members, and we still have that would still be a majority.
Yes.
Yeah,
Majority
okay.
of the commission, yeah.
Yep.
All right, just wanted to touch on that so we didn't blow past it and then,
Oh, we
Right.
thought about it earlier today.
We did,
We're-
yeah.
Just in case.
very
Yeah.
good.
Got another motion.
We do have another motion. Would you like to make that, Bob?
No.
No.
I'll make that motion that SUP 2006-02-D submitted by Goslin Zubek Engineering Services Incorporated for a special use permit for the addition to an existing recreation facility at 3700 Silver Lake Road, parcel 05-016-025-10B approved, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 6, as indicated in Planning Department Report 2025-142.
Support.
We have a motion by Robertson, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion?
I will vote in favor of this, even though I did not accept the findings of fact due to Standard 10. I ultimately don't want the project to be stalled at all, and so I will vote in favor of this and kind of play the optimist role and know that things should march through and the timing will align and we will end up with a crosswalk.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. The motion passes. And with that, we will move on to our next item of business, PD 2025-143, Smith Brothers rezoning request, finding of fact.
That piece? So this is the findings of fact for the rezoning for the Smith Brothers property on Cass Road, just north of Hartman Road. We looked at this initially in October and had the public hearing in November, and are now looking at the findings, which is most of the additional information in the staff report compared to the previous. There are the 8 factors that all rezonings are reviewed against, and at least from staff's analysis and based on discussion in the first 2 meetings on this, it appears that it meets the standards. Staff also notes that we did reach out to TCAPS, which owns the Sabin Data Center, formerly the elementary school. We reached out to them, both, they were included on the public hearing, and we reached out to their facilities staff and did not hear anything about this specific, even through other TCAPs engagement on other projects. This one did not come up, so I don't think, there were no issues identified, I guess, but nothing said specifically, but they were made aware, so. Other than that, the information is pretty much what you have seen before, and the findings are there for your consideration.
Thoughts or questions from the commission?
Looks reasonable to me.
I think we've gone over it already pretty well.
I'll make that motion. The findings of fact for application Z 2025-02 submitted by James Smith to rezone parcel 05-022-019-00 at 2151 Cass Road from its current split zoning of CL, local commercial, and IL, limited industrial, to IL, limited industrial, as presented in Planning Department Report 2025-143, and being made a part of this motion be adopted.
Support. It's a motion by Robertson with support by Fudge. Any further discussion?
Support was received.
All those in tie.
No, just a tie, no good.
I mean, I gotta be the decider. I just have to process these closer.
There you go.
We can arm wrestle him with this later on.
Hearing no further, well, I guess we had a little bit of further discussion, but all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes. And then we have one more motion.
I'll make the motion to recommend to the Township Board that application Z-2025-02 submitted by James Smith to rezone parcel 05-022-019-00 at 2151 Cass Road from its current split zoning of CL, local commercial, and IL, limited industrial, to IL, limited industrial, be approved.
Support.
We have a motion by Robertson and support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same? The motion passes. And we are on to our last item of unfinished business. Item E, PD 2025-144, High Tops CP Plan Shopping Site Plan Review Update.
Okay, so this is a site plan review process that's been going on for quite some time. This is a proposal for a bar, restaurant, and nightclub in the former Yonkers store there at the Cherryland Center. It'll occupy roughly about 3/4 of that space within the former Yonkers. The other remaining quarter is the Two Brothers Dog Park Cafe and Tap Room that's going in currently. So this is the remainder of that space. There was concerns about the impact of the use from both the sound and the operation of it, and the applicant's been very cooperative in going through this process. They did conduct an assessment, an acoustic impact assessment that was done by Robert Anderson Group. They did provide a escrow fund to have that peer reviewed, and we did have ADD review that acoustic impact assessment and provide their comments, and then Robert Anderson Group then responded to that, made some adjustments into their assessment. At this point, we feel pretty comfortable with the modeling and the results of what they've provided as part of that acoustic impact assessment. We feel there's, at this point, it's all based on modeling of what that impact is going to be. Our thought is once the building is completed and before certificate of occupancy, there could be another testing that could check to see if it does match what that modeling was projected for. that location. There were 3 points of reception that were identified by Robert Anderson Group when they did their modeling. One was the back parking lot. Another one was over on Woodward Avenue near the residential that's there, and the other one was over on Forest Lane Drive. So I think that could provide some comparison, just to make sure that it does continue to meet with what's been modeled, and that would ensure compliance with the township's noise ordinance. Also, there was concerns about the operations of the property. They've identified that the customers will all be coming in through the front end or the area to the southeast of the building, and that the northwest side would be limited to the employees. The applicant did meet with representatives from the sheriff's office, Lieutenant Raska and the undersheriff, and they're aware of it. And so that was one of the things. We did get communication from Lieutenant Raska regarding that. So at this point, we feel pretty comfortable with some of the operations. They did provide some guidelines that they're going to be followed, so that was something that we identified as a condition. Also then that the requirement that parking configuration, as I mentioned, would be continuing in terms of operation. So at this point, we went through and we addressed it through all of the standards for site plan review, and at this point feel that it's kind of met all those requirements, or at least as much as can be done at this point until some additional information, like I mentioned, that kind of assessment done of a sound test prior to once the facility is completed. But we've provided it actually, typically I don't think a site plan review, we would do a findings of fact, but we did identify them similar to as like a findings of fact, just because there's some extensive issues related to this particular project. So we did kind of present that as a findings of fact, and then also we've provided a recommended action on the site plan. I also did mention that sound test on your desk, we adjusted it slightly. Mainly we wanted to make sure that how it's written in the packet is really kind of conformance with the noise ordinance. There aren't really data points that you can measure against. So we felt that the acoustical impact assessment that was done is really our way to measure that. So we're adjusting condition number 5 to, again, test it in comparison. If it fits within that model that was originally done here in November of 2025, we can say, okay, then it really hits and meets the requirements of the ordinance for the noise.
Any thoughts or questions from the commission?
I just have one question. So for the recommended action, number 1, that the operation shall adhere to the guidelines and policies. My question is, if in the future, for some reason, from an operational standpoint, this isn't working for them, how could or should they go about making modifications to that?
So usually in a lot of these situations, it's kind of, if we have, let's say there's an issue going on, it's typically complaint-based. And so it would, there's a couple of routes of going that way. Is I think they could probably make some adjustments to their operations. If, let's say, we get a complaint and the zoning administrator would inform them, would provide a informational letter and say there's a complaint and this is the issue, and try to get some correction there. If there needs to be some significant changes, then we could ultimately maybe have them come back for doing a site plan amendment to that if it's significant. These are really, these are more operational than specifically to the land use and the land use design. So these are something that I would think would probably go through our enforcement process.
I was thinking of it less so from complaints and enforcement and more so from an operational standpoint of if he realizes that there's something in here that doesn't work for his business process for some reason, but he doesn't want to be in non-compliance. So how can he just administratively make changes as needed? So again, this is not based on
Right.
complaints, but that
Right.
he needs to make changes with his business.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something that we would work with them. I mean, it's not, those guidelines and policies that they provided are very helpful, but they're not necessarily ordinance, and, it's not like something coming right out of the ordinance. If there is an ordinance issue, we'll have to deal with it in a more legal manner. But I think it ultimately is meeting the intent of some of these requirements is going to be, critical to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the language adhere, would that make like an administrative amendment or greater if there is something major they needed to change? And would we actually want to process an amendment if he was going to change that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Joe?
Yeah, I had the same thought that Cara mentioned. In my experience, a business can create guidelines and policies anytime they want, but they can change it anytime they want. But I noticed in the report that you've got the specific High Tops guidelines and policies received November 12th of this year referenced as among the attachments. And it's also referenced as condition number 1 of the recommended approval, that they adhere to those guidelines. So if somebody wants to make a change thereafter, I think they got to go through the township if they're going to deviate from what was approved and referenced as condition 1 of their permit.
So would it be useful perhaps to, I'm not sure what the exact language is here, so I'm looking for help, but we're looking for High Tops to adhere in spirit or that their general operation should not deviate significantly, and that if they do, that would be the point at which we would go back and say, okay, your general operations were that you were going to have visitors entering from the front of the building. And if that changed, then we would say, well, that's not working, and you said you were going to have your visitors, your customers entering from the front of the building, and that would be a baseline to determine, I don't know, though, how do you do that and say, how do you operate your business, like you've said?
So the
don't-
one,
I think the point, we don't want any deviations from this plan that then cascade into negative effects on the neighbors or the community. And so I don't know how you put that into different words, but yeah.
so if they, referring to the change, if you were to take it as, they must adhere to every letter of that requirement, then if there was a change, it would, you can make an amendment to a site development plan. In that case, it would have to, it would come back to the planning commission.
That does seem kind of onerous, doesn't it? Or not?
Yeah, I guess, one of the things it could do is to maybe look at that a little bit, maybe have it under more of an administration, say through the zoning administrator, who typically is the one that's going to be dealing with the noise ordinance as well as the zoning ordinance and the site plan enforcement. So it might be, we might want to adjust that a little bit. Here.
Because it's, some of the guidelines and policies would affect, like, the neighborhood in the way this is set up and are kind of crucial to how it is. Some of them may just be how they operate their business. So how do we isolate the ones that, like, changes that, or changes to the guidelines, policies are subject to review for potential impact on neighboring properties or something to that effect? was trying to
I would-
wordsmith out loud, but
One
yeah.
thing we could do is leave it as is, and then say any changes to these guidelines are subject to the review of the township zoning administrator. The zoning administrator always has the ability to defer things to the planning commission, so as the zoning administrator is also looking at, like I mentioned, the zoning ordinance as well as the township noise ordinance, the zoning administrator is responsible for code enforcement and so forth. So there is, the ability that they could refer it to the planning commission if for some reason the zoning administrator feels like it's a significant change. I know that's kind of subjective to the zoning administrator, but I feel pretty good about that, so.
Then they've got that authority to say, this doesn't seem like a big deal,
Right.
Or they could say, yeah, I recognize that you're going to change your procedures and operations, or guidelines and policies, but it's not relevant to bring to the planning commission, and if you modify the change in this way, does that seem to make sense to you guys? Yep. Okay, so how would you edit that text, John?
I would leave it as is, just adding a sentence that would say changes to these guidelines are subject to the review.
And approval.
The review and approval of the zoning administrator. And that would just be an addition. I'd leave all the remaining text in place.
Okay. John?
With respect to the sound studies, the applicant gave us, obtained, and took some time to get an expert to do a review, and it was way over my head and probably over a lot of people's heads as far as understanding the technical part of it. And then we had an independent person review that expert to give us what we hope are unbiased guidance, and they pointed out a few things that they thought ought to get followed up, and it looks like the applicant's expert did that, and by doing something in November. I guess my question is, did we not send that to our expert to take a look at again? Because it's still over my head trying to read what they wrote in their November report. There's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo that doesn't add up to me in one way or another.
I did not send that on to ABD. So you're talking about that, there's a letter, and then there was a revised report, November
Yeah, a very
12th.
lengthy one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they, no, I did not send that to ABD.
I would have felt better if we had that.
Did they, did the applicant's sound engineer basically say, yes, we've done that, yes, we revised it accordingly, or were there things that they continued to debate, as it were?
It was a mix.
Yeah, I read it
It's a
that
mix.
way
Some
too.
things they kind of countered, but at the same time, there were some adjustments that were made.
And their countering may be perfectly legitimate, but I have no way of knowing that. That's the whole purpose, I thought, of our spending the effort in getting our expert to take a look at it, to tell us whether we're being fed a bunch of malarkey or straight stuff, and I don't know that with respect to the rebuttal. I mean, and the noise, it's, I think, an awfully important topic, at least it has been to me all along. Those neighbors have been, some of them have probably been living in those houses for 20 or 30 years, and there's been this commercial thing there for 30 years, but it used to be stores. There weren't people getting liquored up and partying and making a lot of noise as they headed out the north side of that building. And I know that there's been a lot of restrictions imposed, and the customers are supposed to just go out on the South Airport side, which I applaud. But it looks like the plan is for the employees to go out the back, and the only way you go out the back is opening a door. And if I'm living in one of those houses, sound asleep, and it's midnight, and the door opens up and a bunch of noise comes out, what are we doing to those people? And that's been my concern, and that's why I wanted to dot our i's and cross our t's with some sound expert that says, you don't have to worry about that, Racine, and then I won't.
do you think it would be sufficient to add an additional condition that the amended traffic study be,
Sound study.
excuse me, traffic study, I got the wrong studies on the mind. Thank you. The amended sound study, because I do like the item number 5 that John's added, that the actual constructed conditions be tested to demonstrate that the sound model was in fact legitimate. And I would expect that to be reviewed by our sound engineer. But I do agree, John, that I think that our sound engineer should also review the rebuttal, as it were, and determine if there's any further, can we make that a condition of this approval? Or should we wait until we get that letter?
I think at this point, so it's all based on modeling, so it's all kind of theoretical. So they haven't even, started to do it. And I think it'd be reasonable to say that that could be a condition of the approval to move that forward and to have that, the second version of the acoustical impact report reviewed by EBD. I think that could be a condition of the approval. Because I think generally there might be a couple items there that they may have kind of disagreed on, that there's general, I think, consensus overall of what the original report provided. So while ABD may have made some changes, I don't think they were drastic or altering to a point of where it's going to be completely different. So I think it's I think it's reasonable to have that review by ABD, but I think it can be done as a condition.
What language would you add to the conditions to accomplish that?
I think you could just add in a number 11 and just say the amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering.
Is that also prior to the issuance of the CO? Because now that I'm thinking about it, what this says is do a sound test, then get a CO. It doesn't say do a sound test that we find sufficient and then get a CO, right?
Well, it's going to be done, it would have to be done soon, because if they're going to make any changes in terms of going through this, I mean, it would have to be done here within the next few weeks. Because the condition number 5 is related to when they actually after construction is completed.
I've got one, I guess, question, caution, concern about the language you've got in this new revised paragraph 5. I like the fact that prior to the issuance of the CMO, there's a conditional or another test done, but it doesn't require that test results support the modeled data. What if it doesn't?
John, I just as we were talking about that, I'm going to suggest that we address that by saying, prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, conduct a sound test of the constructed facility to provide comparative data that verifies the modeled sound pressure levels at the 3 points of reception. So basically, they have to demonstrate that the model was indeed, the real world result is that the model is verified and that the sound should conform to the modeled conditions. Does that make sense?
I had the exact same thought.
Oh, good.
But
So
where do you fit in the ADB review in paragraph 5? Or you think you just do that as a new 11?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, just say the amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering. I mean, that's something that we would do right now because we have that information. We'd want to provide it.
What if ADB reviews it and finds what they think is a problem? I think we need more than just they review it.
reviewed and accepted by ABD, and I'm suggesting that based, John Syke, on you seem pretty confident that there's some maybe narrow issues that need to further be agreed to, but that they could reach some agreement. And if they don't reach an agreement, then, and it's not accepted by ABD Engineering, then it would have to come back to the Planning Commission for further review for not conforming to the conditions, right?
Yeah, well,
The goal is to not have two engineers nitpicking over each other's study.
right, that's what I'm a little, I mean, it's, which one is actually ultimately right? You know, I mean, the idea of having the peer reviews to keep the initial engineer honest. So, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do. I would say we could have the results reported back to the planning commission. And then we can take a look at it at that point. It's anything else that it still kind of leaves it open-ended, but we can make that decision at that point. It, should there be any additional, I know that's the only thing.
That'd all still be prior to the issuance of the CNO, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm okay with that, because frankly, I don't know that our expert necessarily is better than the other guy's expert. They may not be. So I'm not necessarily saying our guy's right, their guy's wrong, but that ought to be up to us to try to figure it all out, and not that this needs to go back and forth like a tennis match for a million rounds, but if our guy pointed out a few things like he did, I say our guy, the township's sound consultant pointed some things out and said, you better look into this, you better look into that. And then he hasn't had a chance to find out what the other person's retort was to that. And I think we would benefit from hearing that. And then maybe we make a judgment call if they are nitpicking with each other.
What do you got for us for some language, John? I see you scratch something down.
I'm trying to work it here, like the amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering with recommendations provided back to the planning commission.
Prior to the issuance of a CNO.
How about with results and any further recommendations, assuming that we get results that say, hey, we're good with this, or there's some further recommendations that would be reported back to the planning commission, where we would kind of have a final say on it. Make sense, John Racine?
What I would say here is the amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering with the results and any further recommendations reported to the planning commission for approval. Or acceptance, or I don't know, something of that nature. So basically, they would have to come back. We provide those to you. Either, to me, approval indicates that you're accepting of them, or you may require additional items.
What do we think?
It's not the best, but
Acceptance or approval?
Basically, if it came back to planning commission and there were additional recommendations, you'd want to add them to the conditions that are present on this approval with conditions. Is that correct?
I think you're right, Steve.
Yeah.
yeah.
And John, wouldn't we still, in number 11, need to tie what you just wrote into something that all happens prior to the issuance of the C of O? Because the only place it talks about prior to the issuance of C of O is in paragraph 5. What you're writing in 11 isn't bound by that prior to the issuance of the C of O, unless you say so.
Yeah. I think we should just have that preface there prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering with results and any further recommendations reported back to the planning commission for approval.
I think so. I think that would work.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be important for them to get on that as soon as possible so that because, obviously if there are some any changes, they'll want to adjust those as they're going through the construction
So
process.
conduct their build-out, and at the point at which the architect, contractor, and acoustical engineer think it's the right time to conduct the test, they get that done, and they've amended, the amended report's been reviewed, and there are some results brought back to us to say, yes, this conforms with our expectations, as approved. Okay. Any further thoughts, conversation? Anybody want to make a motion? It's a two-parter again.
I'll make the motion. Motion that the finding of facts for application SPR-2025-06 as presented in Planning Department Report 2025-144 and being made a part of this motion be adopted.
Support.
We have a motion by Fudge with support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion?
Not
John?
discussion, but like Kara just did with the Y, I think I'll vote no on this aspect, because I don't think standard E, the site design, until we've got that sound thing, I'm not totally satisfied that all the findings of fact have been met. But also like Kara, I'm gonna vote in favor of the next motion.
Okay.
Starting a trend.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed can signify with the same.
Nay.
Nay will work. The motion passes 4-1. Bob, would you like to make that
Sure.
recommended
John,
motion?
John,
You
how
want me to
many?
let me review the changes that we've
Please
discussed
do.
I'm
here.
gonna
so I
say,
can
that's my
highlight some of
question, is how many conditions do we have now?
So, as presented up on the screen there, if we were to use that as a kind of a base, condition number 1 remains the same with the addition of the sentence that says, changes to these guidelines are subject to review and approval of the zoning administrator. Condition number 5 is different. It's on the desks, but I'll read it, and it's been adjusted to read, prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy, conduct a sound test of the constructed facility to provide comparative data that verifies the modeled sound pressure levels at the 3 points of reception as noted in the acoustical impact assessment dated November 6, 2025. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all remain the same. There's the addition of condition number 11, which would state prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy, the amended acoustical impact assessment shall be reviewed by ABD Engineering with the results and any further recommendations reported to the back to the Planning Commission for approval. And that's it.
Support.
Motion hasn't been made yet.
Oh, I thought he made it.
No, I started, but I had asked the question.
Oh.
Okay, I'll make the motion on application SPR 2025-06 submitted by Philip, Philip Beechler for a bar, restaurant, and nightclub on parcel number 05-014-049-08, located at 1776 South Garfield Avenue, be adopted subject to the following conditions 1 through 11, as indicated in the Planning Department Report 2025-144.
And as amended.
And as amended this evening.
I'm sorry?
And as amended this evening.
Yes.
Right.
And conditions as amended.
And I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion by Fudge with support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. The motion passes. All right, with that, well, thanks everybody for the vigorous discussion and staff for the willingness to amend and improve.
Thank you, that's why we need to have that discussion, so. And we will get you a typed version of that motion. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Beeler. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to new business, item A. PD 2025-145 Swan View Special Use Permit Introduction. Where's this one start? There we go. And this one, it's getting pretty thin, guys. Not too much left. I can't right now. I can't. We're in the middle of our meeting. Sorry, guys. All right.
Or new business.
What do we got?
A new business before public comment and that, yeah. So, this is, Swanview, the site is at the southwest corner of, Boardman Lake. The address is 3350 Wysong. We're gonna turn off zoning. It's CG, but I'm gonna turn off so you can see the area a little bit better. So it has some frontage on the lake. It's just north of South Airport between Cass and Park. And we've had, there's been kind of interest over the years, spotty. I know we've fielded calls or had pre-app meetings on this, but this is the first formal submittal for this site that we have seen. And applicants proposing commercial district housing development, doing it more as like a group of duplexes. So together it would function as a commercial district housing. And kind of function like townhomes. So staff did a completeness review of the applicant's submitted materials, which is attached. And then we also commented on commercial district housing has the supplemental use regulations. So aside from what's being proposed and just the sort of standard set of regulations, the commercial district housing also has the open space requirement. And staff wanted to comment on a couple of these things. So the supplemental use regulations, they have at least 50 square feet of private open space, which would be like a covered patio, balcony, if there's multiple stories. In this case, units 1 through 8 are all side by side as duplexes. 9 and 10 are stacked. They're the only two that didn't show any covered patios or any kind of private open space like that on them. The rest did identify those areas, so just to ensure that those two also have that space for them. And then the 300 square feet of common outdoor open space per unit. So this would be common open space, but common area for all of the residents. So the applicants show a 12 foot by 20 sun deck outdoor recreation area and a wood chip path leading up to it. And there's a couple questions. That there's a steep grade leading up to that based on the topography of the site. So both the path itself, which would be reviewed most likely as part of the engineering review of the site, and then also to clarify how much of the space, open space, is actually like usable open space, because it should be outside of required setback from the lake. There's the lake stream setback from a water body, which is part of the zoning ordinance. But just to identify, more detail was needed. A lot of the other things were seemed to be in conformance with zoning ordinance. They seem to provide a lot of detail in the plan. We also received a letter from Watershed Center that had echoed some of that same thing with the 35-foot riparian buffer. I was thinking the word riparian buffer from the lake. So ensuring that whatever's proposed here does not negatively impact the lake. They can certainly use it as an amenity, but to not build anything that would be disruptive to that. So otherwise, I believe the applicant team is here if there are any questions. And this is an introduction, so the only motion would be to set a public hearing if you so chose.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Mitchell, land surveyor. Address is 3356 Jackson Road, Kingston, Michigan. First, I'd just like to thank the work John and Steve are doing They took time out of their schedule before this property was purchased to meet with me and the developer and kind of see what would fit, what's been discussed in the past, and kind of give us, best options, which guided us in producing this site plan. So what we're trying to do is provide home ownership on this property. It's a beautiful piece of property. With its location, we figured there would going to be some traffic issues, which steered us away from retail or commercial. Really thought the residential development would fit the best, with the aesthetics of the property. There's no point in it to put a bunch of people in an office that's all blocks when you have a beautiful view like that. So our vision is to, be able to enjoy the view and keep most of that front property in between the structures and the lake kind of green. It's got a beautiful overlook of the walkway there, and the houses, our vision is to have pretty much glass front, like a walkout ranch, with a upper and a lower, a limited common element outdoor. And that would be true. We'd provide that also. We'll have to clarify in the site plan for units 9 and 10 to make sure we can meet that requirement. As far as the outdoor open space gathering area, I'm sure we can work with Steve to provide that area in an area that meets the ordinance standard. We were just looking for some type of area that would be like a picnic table style. Maybe there'll be fireworks someday to go out there and watch, or just to go out there and, watch the birds land. There's always activity right there. But we believe the proposal more or less is in line with the ordinance, and if we can get some support, we can make some modifications to make sure everything's compliant with the township ordinance, and then go to some other agencies. We haven't really spent much time with other agencies because we thought it was appropriate to see if the concept was compliant with the planning department and the board. So if there's any questions, maybe I can answer them.
I don't really have a lot of questions for tonight. It's just an introduction, and it seems perfectly fine to me that it go to public hearing. I did notice in one of your attachments was your letter of intent and project impact statements, and you made reference to the density proposed based on the 1.79 acres. And I noticed staff had, I guess, called that out in their review, that what you're showing is a gross acreage, and they want to learn the net acreage. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure which we even usually use in calculating density, but maybe you guys can fill us in on that when the time comes to look at those sorts of things.
Yeah, mostly gross and net, just to, if there are any easements, which would be either on the roadside or if there's anything on the lakeside. There used to be either proposal, or I think there was an easement for a while when the Boardman Lake Loop Trail was being placed, before it was eventually moved with that, yeah. So there was an easement probably at one point, but yeah, just account for, if there are none, then they're the same, but just to note that, so, yeah.
So to that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah,
we were kind of excited about so-called easement, but our council and title company essentially has told us that easement across our property was not a reciprocal easement.
okay,
It was an option by the city.
okay.
So if they chose to go through there with the trail, we can't use it to backtrack up and around. It was only for their benefit.
Okay,
So our understanding is once they finished their planning and built theirs through the water, ours daylighted and evaporated. So we believe the net acreage, actually, and the gross acreage are the one and the same,
yep,
but we can reflect that on our
Yeah.
next submission.
that's fine, yeah, okay. That's what I'm saying, I did not know that history of that either, too, so.
And we can provide those documents with the title policy.
Or is just a history curious on that,
Yeah.
but thank you, yeah.
John?
Just one other comment, and this is more for staff, I think, rather than for you, Jesse, but it was just this week in the Ticker, there was some interview of city's planner, Sean Winters, who was speaking from his own personal perspective, not necessarily the city's, but suggesting, wouldn't it be wonderful if the city and the township got together and did some kind of joint planning around the Boardman Lake Loop area for housing and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm not suggesting necessarily that we need to put a brake on this project, but would that impact, if something like that were to come to pass, would that impact what we're maybe about to be doing in the next few months?
Yeah, actually, I had a meeting with Sean and some other individuals that were interested in promoting that, kind of doing a master plan for the Boardman Lake Loop Trail, trying to make connections and so forth, just as kind of was described in the ticker article the other day. At this point, to us, it's kind of a timing issue. We've been having some conversations on the Logan's Landing area and what's going to happen with that in the future. Also, you may have read too that NMC is going through and evaluating the University Center to kind of figure out. I feel like those are some bigger items for us to really kind of get some sense of where we're going to go with on the overall land use. I'd rather have that more as an internal discussion within the framework of the township master plan. I do think there is value in looking at that master plan for the Boardman Lake Loop Trail, particularly when you're looking at connections beyond that. But I think from a timing standpoint, I'd rather offset that a little bit farther down the road. I do know the city, if they were looking at it too, would probably be looking at their next fiscal year in terms of if there was any financial commitments. On our side, I have not, we haven't even presented to the Planning Commission or the town board, only because it's just been kind of a concept that was discussed. I think they're just, like I said, I think it's a good idea. It'd be great to have a collaboration with the county and the city working together on that. I'm thinking on timing wise, it's maybe a little bit farther out, and there are some big things that need to really kind of be addressed, and certainly anything related to land use development and so forth, I think can proceed as is.
Thanks.
Anyone else with any other thoughts? Just a couple of things that I spotted. It looks like a few more of the trees might be getting removed in order to facilitate the grading plan than
Yeah, a
what's
couple.
than what's shown.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't concern me so much as I'd be interested to see what our engineers have to say with regard. The dry wells seem like a feasible way to do the stormwater management for the front, but it is on the top of that steep slope. So certainly some more detail there. Well, again, that's for our engineering department. And then I would also have a concern about the soils and the steep slopes in terms of just keeping them in place. I know that just up the shoreline, some steep slope development has been done. I can't think of the name of the road in the city, but it runs right parallel to the Tart Trail. So certainly it's been demonstrated that it's feasible. We just need to make sure that it's thoroughly planned and
And
engineered.
just to note, we have some test holes and got some soil data, and most of this area, to our benefit, is sandy soils. So you're not gonna get, if you have a layer of clay, you know what happens. You start digging into it and all of a sudden you form an artesian well. And that's a very bad situation, but it's sandy soils. It provides a lot better opportunity for infiltration. And we do have a pretty decent buffer between there and the lake for infiltration and stabilization techniques that are temporary.
And then to that steep slope too, the amenity down by the water seems like a nice thing, but just how you're going to navigate that. I'm concerned about a wood chip trail going down that steep
And
slope.
then there may need to be some steps, and not all wood chips.
Okay.
And obviously, this is not getting built tomorrow, so we have a lot of other little checklists, get through. DPW, there's sewer and water on site. The sewer line is dry. No one's even using it because it's a dead-end line. There's a 6-inch water main. We're not sure if we'll have to add a hydrant. We haven't done any of our other agency reviews. We just want to see if what we're looking at is compatible with what the planning department sees and the board, and then we'll go forward from there.
Sounds good. Any further questions or concerns, or are we ready to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. The silence is deafening up here tonight. I'll move that application SUP 2025-03, submitted by Boardman Triple J LLC for a special use permit for a commercial district housing development at 3350 Wysong Road, parcel 05-015-06230, be accepted and scheduled for a public hearing at the January 14th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Racine, support by Ioli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. All right, with that, we have one more opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to step up to the podium and make any public comment, feel free to do so now. Seeing no one rush to the podium, we'll move on to other business. Looks like we have a meeting schedule presented for 2026. Any questions or concerns about that meeting schedule?
I think the only comments, we had done the one meeting at 6 last month, and when we tried that, and then I think it's almost ingrained that it's at 7 at this point, because 2 people showed up late.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But we've had no, I think we've had no problem making the,
Yeah.
the joint meeting at 6.
Yeah, joint meeting at 6, so, and I wasn't at the town board meeting, so I don't know if they've set their schedule yet, but I think they've been made aware of that to do a joint meeting. The only other one that was on a different date was November. Second Tuesday would be the 11th,
Second
which
Wednesday.
is, or second Wednesday would be the 11th, Veterans Day, when office is closed. And we normally don't have a study session the day before Thanksgiving anyway, so just going one in between the two. We keep them kind of evenly spaced. So.
And in the past, there's been a conflict, perhaps, am I correct, with the Planners Association Conference? Is that?
We know the dates already, and it does not conflict.
Excellent.
Also, the National Planning Conference is in Detroit this year. If anyone wants training opportunities on a national conference, hint, hint. We also looked, that's in April, and that also does not conflict with these dates, so it's about perfect.
Very good. All right.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the Planning Commission meeting dates as set forth on item 9A in our packet.
Support?
Motion by Racine, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion?
Just, well, I'm fine with 7, but did we want to consider 6 to be consistent with Township Board, or is everybody good with 7?
Do you guys?
I personally like 7.
I like 7.
Keep it 7.
I'm good with 7. I get a full meal in my belly before coming to the meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes. All right, and with that, items for our next agenda include election of officers and the Airport Gateway Master Plan Amendment Public Hearing. I am interested to know if you guys, I just saw in the ticker that the airport is looking at building its own hotel.
Yep.
Seems practical to me that an airport can probably support multiple hotels, so I don't see as any reason to pause or reconsider our master plan amendment. However, I would like to see where that hotel is relative to, just out of curiosity. So if you could bring an exhibit or something that says, hey, this is where the airport's planning on putting on a hotel, and this is how it relates to where we're doing our work.
Yeah, actually, we just had an airport zoning board meeting today, so we were presented with the concept of what is being considered. And actually, it's located right across from the terminal. So it will, in some of the concept, ultimately would have a kind of a catwalk going across the drive. So as you're entering in and kind of turning towards the terminal with the terminal on your right, this would be on your left-hand side.
Oh, so right where parking is right now.
Just before that. So if you.
Yeah, bring me a drawing.
Yes. So, but nonetheless, it would be on the inside of that loop.
Okay.
And so, this is a little bit of a side to that, but when we were talking with the airport today, they kind of talked about keeping the parking and so forth on the interior of that loop. So some of the tree coverage in there could be removed as they expand for parking for the airport terminal or airport hotel. But they did talk about that it's their intent to keep a buffer along South Airport. And if for some reason, if they take out, some considerable amount of trees, they'll look at ways that they can improve that buffer along South Airport Road.
I like hearing that because I was hopeful that we wouldn't get parity on both sides of the road. It seems to me it would be better that way. So good to hear. Okay. Anything else for the next agenda?
You'll be having the 931 Dual Road will be findings of fact, and you'll have the Swan View public hearing will be added in.
All right. Very good.
I don't think we got any new applications. No, we did not. So that should be it.
Well, if there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
see everybody next year.
All right.